Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our beloved Brahma. Today we will conclude chapter 23, the double soul in man, and we will do the last two paragraphs, beginning with, even as between the other divided and opposed terms.
The page is 242. So we start reading the para. Even as between the other divided and opposed terms of manifested being, so also a supramental consciousness energy could alone establish a perfect harmony between these two terms, apparently opposite only because of the ignorance of spirit status and world dynamism in our embodied existence. In the ignorance, nature centers the order of her psychological movements not around the secret spiritual self, but around its substitute, the ego principle. A certain egocentrism is the basis on which we bind together our experiences and relations in the midst of the complex contacts, contradictions, dualities, incoherences of the world in which we live. This egocentrism is our rock of safety against the cosmic and the infinite, our defense. But in our spiritual change, we have to forego this defense. Ego has to vanish. The person finds itself dissolved into a vast impersonality. And in this impersonality, there is at first no key to an ordered dynamism of action. A very usual result is that one is divided into two parts of being, the spiritual within, the natural without. In one, there is the divine realization seated in a perfect inner freedom. But the natural part goes on with the old action of nature, continues by a mechanical movement of past energies, her already transmitted impulse. Even if there is an entire dissolution of the limited person and the old egocentric order, the outer nature may become the field of an apparent incoherence, although all within is luminous with the self. Thus, we become outwardly inert and inactive, moved by circumstance or forces, but not self-mobile. Even though the consciousness is enlightened within, or as a child, though within is a plenary self-knowledge, or as one inconsequent in thought and impulse, though within is an utter calm and serenity, or as a wild and disordered soul, though inwardly there is the purity and poise of the spirit. Or if there is an ordered dynamism in the outward nature, it may be a continuation of superficial ego action, witnessed but not accepted by the inner being, or a mental dynamism that cannot be perfectly expressive of the inner spiritual realization. For there is no equivalence between action of mind and status of spirit. Even at the best, where there is an intuitive guidance of light from within, the nature of its expression in dynamism of action must be marked with the imperfections of mind, life, and body. A king with incapable ministers, and knowledge expressed in the values of the ignorance. Only the descent of the supermind, with its perfect unity of truth, knowledge, truth will, can establish in the outer, as in the inner existence, the harmony of the spirit. For it alone can turn the values of the ignorance entirely into the values of the knowledge.
Oh,
It's
there's
a very
lot
interesting,
here,
yeah.
a lot here.
It's a very interesting paragraph where he is talking of the phenomena of this in the very well known Jadavat, Balavat, Unmattavat, Pishachavat. Okay. He is explaining how it happens. So we begin with the beginning. Even as between the other divided and opposed terms of manifested being. So he is talking of two types of divisions. One in the lower being and one in the higher being also there can be a division. So in the lower being we have the dualities. Light, darkness, hot, cold, good, bad, evil, etc. Okay. Infinite, finite. All these are the dualities in the and they are divided. Actually they are not divided, they are only two poles of extreme poles of the same thing, but you see them as opposites. So even as between the other divided and opposed terms of manifested being, so also a supramental consciousness energy could alone establish a perfect harmony between these two terms, apparently opposite only because of the ignorance. And what are those two? Spirit status and world dynamism. Spirit status is above the higher mind, and world dynamism is the action in the lower hemisphere, body, mind, life. So here there is action, there is static condition. In the ignorance, nature centers the order of her psychological movements not around the secret spiritual self, but around its substitute, the ego principle. A certain egocentrism is the basis on which we bind together our experiences and relations in the midst of the complex contacts, contradictions, dualities, incoherences of the world in which we live. This egocentrism is our rock of safety against the cosmic and the infinite, our defense. Now, this is a very interesting thing because
Yes.
what the personality, sometimes it is spoken of as memory is the most important for your personality. If your memory is not there, from moment to moment, what is going to join your today and tomorrow and today and tomorrow and day after tomorrow? What's going to join it if memory is not there? So ego is one of those things which is more central than memory. Sometimes memory is spoken of as a real binding element in a personality, but ego is more important. I have a very interesting case at home now, okay, where memory is gone, but ego is there. It's very interesting. He gets angry. If you say something to him, he will react. The ego is very much there. But memory, no. Have you eaten? He doesn't remember whether he's eaten. I am eating with him, and at the end of it, he says, "Have you eaten with me?" He asks. The same question here. This is what you call a short-term memory loss. But, I don't know the exact difference between short-term memory loss and what is it called? Dementia. These are all related things, but I don't know the exact medical differences. But definitely one thing is there, memory links, but ego is linking even more. So, this is a very interesting question, and the ego
Yes.
protects you from the vast impersonal forces of the universe. If something that protection was not there, you would be blown about like a leaf in the wind. That's a phenomenon he is going to describe later on. That's exactly the point. So, but in our spiritual change, we have to forego this defense. Ego has to vanish. The person finds itself dissolved into a vast impersonality. And in this impersonality, there is at first no key to an ordered dynamism of action. The ego is disappearing, but what is replacing it is for centration. Something has to centralize your being, body, mind, life, and all your past experience. Something has to centralize it. If that is not there, then there is this problem that comes.
There's no dynamism of action.
Yes.
Exactly.
It becomes a chaotic dynamism of action. That's what he's saying. It becomes chaotic. There is no ordered linkages. So, ego has to vanish. The person finds himself dissolved into a vast impersonality. And this impersonality, there is at first no key to an ordered dynamism of action. Again, we remember the ego is that which has got features. I find this an interesting image. a grain of salt. That's a personality. Throw it in water. Has the individuality disappeared? Salt is there everywhere. So the individuality has not disappeared, but the limited personality has disappeared. So that's the impersonality he's speaking about. You are everywhere. But something must centralize you. If the self has come, you have the experience of self, fine. But if the self has, there is nothing to replace that ego, then these problems arise. So, a very usual result is that one is divided into two parts of being: the spiritual within, the natural without. The natural body-mind life, that's a natural part of it. In one, there is a divine realization seated in a perfect inner freedom. But the natural part goes on with the old action of nature. Their old habits will be there and everything. Sri Aurobindo has that poem, The Self, in which someone who is in the self is saying, I am free, and then starts cursing when his dinner is not ready.
Right.
So he says, how come? He says, I am not shouting, it's the belly that is shouting. So this is the phenomena he is describing. Okay, so a perfect inner freedom, but the natural part goes on with its old action of nature, continues by a mechanical movement of past energies, her already transmitted impulse. Even if there is an entire dissolution of the limited person and the old egocentric order, the outer nature may become the field of an apparent incoherence, although all within is luminous with the self. Thus we become outwardly inert and inactive, moved by circumstance or forces, but not self-mobile. The corresponding Indian term is jadavat, like an inert stone. You'll be behaving like that, you'll not react to anything. But actually you are in a divine consciousness. The consciousness is high.
And you have met people like this in the ashram?
Not exactly like that, but another one I'll give you. Balavat, yes, we have had people in the ashram with Balavat tendency. It's very interesting. Okay, so then the second one is, even though the consciousness is enlightened within, or as a child, though within is a plenary self-knowledge. We have had a case like that in the ashram. There was a gentleman who he behaved very, very childishly. He used to complain to mother about all sorts of small things which he need not have complained about. My tap is not working, my dish is not working, my servant does not come. And he used to rush, always with a bag in his hand, he used to rush to the dining hall, always at the last minute. 12:30 is the ending time. He'll be going 12:28, he'll start from his home, and everyone on the way he'll go on asking, what is the time, what is the time? And Bhagavad used to be very solicitous to him, because he was at a very high level of consciousness. And we know that he was at a very high level of consciousness afterwards. When he passed away, his experiences came out in the Tamil Advent. And we know from that. Not only that, a very close friend of mine, okay, he told her that I had a dream in which you are sitting on a tree, okay, and I looked up, and my motive was not a very good one. I immediately knew that I have dropped in consciousness.
He's telling this to somebody.
This gentleman, he
Yes.
told one of my very good friends, and I was told this, yes, that you were sitting on a tree, and when I looked up at you, the motive was not a very good one, and immediately I knew that I have fallen in consciousness.
How sincere.
So this is one of the indications that he was always at. And then afterwards, when it was published in the Advent, he is having the same experience that Sri Aurobindo had, the divine hearing, the divine sight. The divine hearing sonnet is a very interesting one, where Sri Aurobindo is saying the blare of the car passing in the road, the siren of the factory, all these are divine sounds. He had these experiences. So this is a typical Balavat. You behave like a child, okay, but at the same time you are in a high consciousness.
What's his name?
I can't remember, but I think as far as I remember, we used to call him Shuren Pagla. Pagla means madman. So his name was Shri the Bengali chap. A tall, dark, thin, and always rushing to the dining hall. He was famous for that. So, There have been other cases also like that. Someone who would be sitting always it was a Punjabi lady, okay, and she used to be always sitting on the stairs near the Samadhi. You know, on the western side there are stairs there.
Yes, yes.
She used to be sitting there every day and she'll go on talking to herself. No violence, but she'll go on talking to herself. Her name is Swaraj Ben. Right? Another case like that.
But she was in a higher consciousness.
Must have been, because she's coming to the Samadhi every day. If she's not in this consciousness, I mean, this is a conjecture, you can say. But the other one is a well-known case. But this one could be a conjecture. Or maybe I've forgotten something, it's possible. But she's one of those cases also, where she used to sit there and go on talking to herself. Okay, then, so that is the Balavat and the, I can't say that Unmattavat is absolutely like a mad person. So, there was another person like that, but whether he was in a high level of consciousness, I don't know. He used to stand outside the ashram gate and go on talking to himself for hours. But whether he was in a high consciousness, I can't say. Mad cases there have been.
There is one still.
Huh?
He stands in front of the ashram and
Yes, and he used to go on talking to him.
But his mom-
I'm talking about the early 50s. He used to do that. Okay, so child, though within, is a plenary self-knowledge, or as one inconsequent in thought and impulse, though within is an utter calm and serenity. This is referring to as a unmattavat. Unmattavat means almost like a mad person. So then, or as a wild and disordered soul, though inwardly there is the purity and poise of the spirit. This is the Pishachavat.
Wild
Like a
and disordered.
That also is possible.
So basically it's like degrees. The Unnamatavat is also slightly wide, but this one is doing that.
Yes, even more wild. In fact, in the Chandogya Upanishad, you have a Brahman knower who is a cart puller. He is a puller of a cart. And he is a Brahman knower. He sits underneath his cart. You remember that?
I think the name is Revaka.
I don't remember the name, but there is a description. So all these things are possible if there is not a systematic, coordinated development. This can happen.
In the Bhagavad Puran, there is a mention of Jadavat. So for the first one, Jadavat, there is a famous example from Bhagavad Puran.
Yes.
About Jadavat.
Yes, exactly. That also is an example. But those are maybe not mythological fully,
No.
but here we have cases which are absolutely living cases. Okay. So, if there is an ordered dynamism in the outward nature, it may be a continuation of superficial ego action, witnessed but not accepted by the inner being, or a mental dynamism that cannot be perfectly expressive of the inner spiritual realization. So the ego may not have dissolved fully, it is still there, but the inner being is not accepting that. It is leading more on its own spiritual experience, but not accepting this. That also is possible.
Now there's an interesting word,
Yeah.
equipollence.
Yes, that's right. The equipollence, it means sameness of signification of two or more propositions which differ in language. That's the equipollence. So, there has to be a harmonious relation between the two situations. That's the equipollence. The dictionary meaning is this in logic: sameness of signification of two or more propositions which differ in language.
So the action of the mind is not equal to the status of the spirit. Basically, what the spirit would like to say is not being said by the mind.
So, or if there is an ordered dynamism in the outer nature, it may be a continuation of superficial ego action, witnessed but not accepted by the inner being, or a mental dynamism that cannot be perfectly expressive of the inner spiritual realization. For there is no equipollence between action of mind and status of spirit. There is no coordination. Even at the best, where there is an intuitive guidance of light from within, the nature of its expression and dynamism of action must be marked with the imperfections of mind, life, and body. A king with incapable ministers, and knowledge expressed in the values of the ignorance. Only the descent of the supermind, with its perfect unity of truth knowledge and truth will, can establish in the outer, as in the inner existence, the harmony of the spirit. For it alone can turn the values of the ignorance entirely into the values of the knowledge. But we should not think that if you don't reach the supermind, this will occur. No, that's not true. It only occurs in certain cases. There are many yogis who go into the higher regions without reaching the supermind, but they don't come under these categories.
So the question then that I would pose is, if there is no action in life, what is the value of being there in Sri Aurobindo's yoga?
It's incomplete.
Yes.
There is action, but it's a disordered action. Which what you mean is to bring down that consciousness in the action of the physical world.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, then it's incomplete. But that's many paths of the ascetics take that path. And Sri Aurobindo, his attitude is, if you want to take that path, it's a solution for you, fine. You want to disappear into without bothering about the body, mind, life, that's okay for you if you want. But he wants more perfection. And another thing, it will also leave the physical world as it is. There will be no progress.
Yes.
That's the important point.
That is what we are reading. These 4 or 5 or 6 examples that he's given is when you are there in the spirit of the universal spirit, but your individual action is categorized like this because it's incomplete. It's because the supermind is where both can get harmonized and completed.
And that's why he wants everybody who has actually reached a level of perfection, they should contribute to the evolution in the physical world. So that's why he wants you to come down with a perfected consciousness. If everyone disappears who is perfect, the world remains static in its own imperfection. He mentions this in the Life Divine. So, we read the last para. In the fulfillment of our psychic being, as in the consummation of our parts of mind and life, it is the relating of it to its divine source, to its correspondent truth in the supreme reality, that is the indispensable movement. And here too, as there, it is by the power of the supermind that it can be done with an integral completeness and intimacy that becomes an authentic identity. For it is the supermind which links the higher and the lower hemispheres of the one existence. In supermind is the integrating light, the consummating force, the wide entry into the supreme Ananda. The psychic being, uplifted by that light and force, can unite itself with the original delight of existence from which it came, overcoming the dualities of pain and pleasure, delivering all fear and shrinking from the mind, life and body. It can recast the contacts of existence in the world into terms of the divine Ananda. So that completes the double soul in man. Now, just to remind you, the next chapter is matter. So, just to remind you what he is doing, his scheme of developing the theme, he is linking the upper hemisphere with the lower hemisphere. This is very important for him because unless he does this, how can a divine life take place on earth? So he has to show the connection. Whereas all the other Buddhism, Mayavada, even Shankara doesn't say the world is unreal, but he says there is a dichotomy between the two. There is no connection. If there is no connection, you have to go there for the divine. But Sri Aurobindo is saying there is a connection and you can get the divine here also. Alright, so what I want to mention now, he is busy connecting the two. So first he has dealt with the supermind, then he has dealt with pure existent. The first chapter is the pure existent, which is the Sat, and he has linked it with matter. Then he's speaking about conscious force. Okay? And conscious force it becomes the vital here. So that's why several chapters on the conscious force and the vital. The double soul also is part of the phenomena of vital, because there is a psychic being inside and the vital is outside. Next he comes to matter. So matter is very important and very difficult chapter. It's not easy to understand, the words are quite difficult. Anyway, we'll try.
Good.
And we'll see what we can do. But if you ask very detailed questions, it's going to be tough. It's not easy to understand, it's quite difficult. So matter also he will connect it with the Sat. Once he has done that, then he will go on to there are other things that he goes on to. Matter also there are 4 or 5 chapters. I think there are 4 chapters on matter. Because the ascending series of substance, the sevenfold cord of being, so these are all connected with matter. Okay.
Thank you, Ranga. Namaste.